Hi, this is Gloria, your mindfulness coach, and welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle.
Hi, this is Ronald Johnson, mindfulness coach and NLP practitioner, and welcome to another episode of Life's a Shuffle. Today is Saturday, and we have a great special guest on the other side of the world. It's a place I'm going to visit one day. It's a place I have to visit because there's so much wonderful cultures at this place. She's all the way from the UK. Her name is Tiffany Charters, and Tiffany, welcome to Life's a Shuffle.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me here, Ron and Gloria. I can't wait to share my story with your audience.
You don't have to wait. You can start sharing it now. I'm ready to listen.
So, hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany, and I live in London in the UK. I have two children, a little girl who is 5 and a little boy who is 6. And yes, I had them a year apart, and that's crazy. Some people, in fact, not some people, everybody tells me I was crazy, but I had kids late, so I just wanted to get it out of the way. So that's why they are so close in age. But yeah, so a little bit of my backstory. I was not born in the UK. I was actually born in Zimbabwe, but Zimbabwe went through like a really terrible time because they had civil unrest, and they wanted to get independence from the British, and that was around the time, just not long after I was born. So that my mum decided to leave Zimbabwe for me because she just didn't want to bring me up in that environment, and she had no idea what was going to happen. So we first went to live in Geneva, Switzerland, and we stayed there for 3 years. And then my mum met my now stepdad, who lived here in London, UK, and then we moved here. So I grew up here from the age of 6. So I did all my schooling here, everything, and we did move to one more place, sort of, when I was about 11, but we only stayed there for a year. So I've kind of been all over the place. So we emigrated to Australia and we lived there for about a year. So from 11 till 12. But we as a family, my sister was 2, so she can't remember. But we hated it. We absolutely hated it. And it just because the place that we lived in Australia, Brisbane at the time, it was just so different to London. Like, London is so liberal, so cosmopolitan, so forward thinking. And we were like in this small town just outside the big town of Brisbane. And it was really, really different. So it was a hard change for us. So we decided to come back. And then my parents stayed with me in England for a few more years. And then so they had this bug of like moving around. So then they moved back to Zimbabwe when I was age 17. And I decided to stay behind. I was in college and I was like, my friends are here, everyone's here. I'm not going back to live in Zimbabwe. I don't even know anyone in Zimbabwe. But they had been gone for like a year and I missed them so much. And my mum was having another baby, my brother. So just a quick story on my siblings. So my mum had me from my dad, and then she met my stepdad, and then she had my sister when I was 9 years old. And then when she was 9 and I was 18, she had my brother. So we are all 9 years apart. And like we always say to her, oh my gosh, like, Mum, how did you like work this out that you were having a baby every 9 years? But anyway, so I had missed them so much. And then I had this little brother on the way. So I decided to move to Zimbabwe for a while. And it was when I was in Zimbabwe, and I was there for a couple of years, that I met my ex-husband. So he was also Zimbabwean. And we got into a relationship. And then there was more unrest again in Zimbabwe when they started taking over the farms. And I was like, you know what, it's not looking good here. We thought it was going to be another war zone again. So we decided to move back to England, and then we got married here. And it was when we moved back here that my husband became really, really abusive, and he was physically abusive. And he didn't do it while we were in Zimbabwe because, his parents were there, my parents were there. And so nothing ever happened while we were there. But when we got back here, I was all alone, and he had basically had me all to himself. He sort of cut me off from all my friends and my family. And he was, very controlling. I couldn't go out. He told me what I could wear. He controlled like the money, and he was physically abusive. So whenever I did anything wrong that he didn't like, I basically used to get hit. And that went on for a number of years until one of my family phoned my mum and told her that, what was going on. And my mum, kept speaking to me. She did come over at some point, but of course, anyone that's in a relationship and you've got other people telling you that you should leave that relationship, it's either you're going to be too scared, or you because you really love that person, you're not going to want to leave. So in this case, it was both of those things. I was absolutely petrified of what he would do to me if I ever left. But also on the other side of that, I really, really loved him. I loved him so much. And I kept making excuses for him. And, I would lie about what he was doing, and I was hiding it from my family. And I was saying, it's not that bad. And sometimes I'll say, oh, you know what, he just had too much to drink and all these kind of things. But it got to the point where it was so bad and I was so unhappy and so stressed with it all that I became really ill. And I actually landed up in hospital because of stress. And in the middle of summer, it was boiling hot here, I caught pneumonia. I don't even know how. But I think because I was so stressed, my body was, my immune system was being attacked because of the stress that I was under. So I just caught a bug. And for some reason, I don't know why the doctors couldn't work out that it was pneumonia, or they just didn't test for it. I don't know what they thought, but I landed up in hospital with double pneumonia, and it was quite serious. And it was only at that point then my mum flew back again, and she, once I became conscious, because there was a part of the time that I wasn't conscious, I guess when they were treating me, that she said to me, you have to leave because you're going to die. If he doesn't kill you, something else is going to kill you, like the stress or whatever it is. And, and luckily, she was able to stay with me at that point and give me the strength and the courage to be brave, to walk away from him. And you know what? The funny thing is that all during this time in my career, I was so successful. I was earning so much money, but I was so miserable and I was just hiding everything. But I had more power than I realized. I didn't realize that, it didn't occur to me. The house we're living in, I bought it and paid for it. The car that I had, I bought it and paid for it, but in my mind, it was ours. So I didn't have any power to leave. And it took my mum coming to say, look, this is your house. You can ask him to leave, like legally, not in another way, but legally you could say, I need you to leave. I don't want to be with you anymore. But I did not feel that I had that power to do that, even though, so I was powerless, not knowing that I had the power, not feeling like I had the power, but I did. And it took someone else talking to me and saying, this is what you need to do. And like, do this, do this, do that. In fact, my mum took him to the side because not only was he being abusive, but at this point when I was in hospital, and I didn't know this, he had been cheating with another woman for a year, and he had hid that from me.
Oh my God.
And I'd found out just before I went into hospital, I had found out that he was with this girl. But of course, someone who's a cheat will always lie about it. Oh, it's not serious. I didn't mean it. It doesn't mean anything. I don't want to be with her. I want to be with you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I think it had got to the point where it was just a bit too much. And my mum was like, if you're going to want me and the rest of the family in your life, you're going to have to choose. And, you are able to do this and you are strong enough. And she encouraged me. And like I said, she was there for 2 years. no, sorry, 3 months. And she, in that time, once I came out of hospital, she was there, and she had spoken to him when I was in hospital and said, look, you need to leave. You know, do you love my daughter? Because everything you're doing, you're cheating, you're beating her up and all of these things. And so why are you here? You know, what are you doing with her? If you don't want her, then just let her go. And at first he said to my mum, well, I just don't love her. And he'd never, ever said that to me. And so when my mum told me, that was such a hard pill to swallow, you know, you'd been rejected so much. You'd been cheated on. You'd been physically abused and all of these things. And then they say, well, I don't love you. So now not only do you have such low self-esteem and low confidence, you actually feel so unworthy. So I'm, you know, like if I was at rock bottom at this point thinking, why doesn't he love me? Like, what have I done? What's wrong with me? You know, all those kind of things that go through your head. But really, there was nothing wrong with me, you know, and it was him. It was, you know, he had chosen to do some things that weren't right for whatever the reason, and maybe we weren't compatible or whatever it was. And yeah, so he did leave. So my mum had the word with him, but when I came out of hospital, I said to him, you know, you have to go, because I can't be in this toxic relationship anymore. So I'll give you a month to like sort of find somewhere to go. And he did. He and this girl, they found a place to live, and he left. And I saw him maybe once or twice after that, and then I never saw him again, because I just said to him, I never want to see you again. I don't, you know, want you anywhere near me. I was too hurt, I was too broken, and I really needed to heal. And it was kind of around about that time that I had, I'm going to say I found faith, but I already was, I never grew up in a household where my parents were believers. So it was never something that was taught to me. But because I was going through such a hard time, I had this innate thing in me, like to go to church and to find God and to really be rescued, you know, because I was completely broken. And I would say that was the best place for me to go and be in that time, because when my mum had to go back to Zimbabwe, I was left again. I did have cousins, and my sister was here, but my sister's really young, and you know that people are living their lives, aren't they? They, you know, they get on with their lives, and so they might be around a lot for the beginning, but it kind of that wears off. And so I was all alone, and so I found God and I went to church, and then I decided to rent out my house, and I moved with some of the girls that I met in church. We got a flat together, and that's really where my healing process started, really where I started to rebuild myself, to find my value again, to find my confidence, and to find a new family, you know, that loved me unconditionally and accepted me. And, you know, and also feeling that love and acceptance, you know, unconditionally from God. And it was amazing. And I met the most amazing people who, you know, had such a huge part of, you know, my healing journey and building me up again to the person I wouldn't say that I am now, because obviously I went through a 7-year process, a 7-year time of being single before I met the next person. But by the time that 7 years was over, I was a whole person again. I wasn't so broken, and I'd healed from what that my ex had done to me, and I'd forgiven him. I'd forgiven the girl. I'd, you know, let go of it all, and I was living my life, and that's where I changed my career, and I studied coaching, and I did so much. I did so much work on myself, you know, spiritually, in my mind, in my body, and everything. And I had these amazing people around me, and then I met the second guy, and we never married. So I was only married to the first guy, And sort of in the middle of that 7 years, we'd got a divorce, because at first he wouldn't do the divorce, but eventually it went through. And then, so when I met the other guy, I was back to being who I was, that person. I was whole again. I was happy. I was confident and everything. And when I first met this guy, he was the most loving, attentive, charming. I don't know what's all the wonderful words you can say. Seemed like a very put together.
He's a knight in shining armor, I would say.
Yeah. He seemed like Prince Charming. Like after what I had been through, I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? This is the person I've been waiting for all my life, And I felt confident enough to, at this point, because I'd been alone and single for 7 years and had done a lot of work on myself, to think that I could pick the right person and know the right person. And the thing is that I didn't have a clue. And for all the people out there, that if they meet someone like this, there is no way you will ever have a clue who they are, what they are, because they are so amazing at hiding who they are. A lot of people liken it to, they have a mask up, and that mask never slips. It does slip occasionally, and you might get sort of glimpses of who they are. But because you're so in love and they're so wonderful, and they treat you that certain way for quite some time, that you would just put it down to, you'd make an excuse about it. And this one was like a real whirlwind, because 3 months after we met, I fell pregnant. And that was a little bit of a hard conversation, because it was very early on. And it was a big shock to me, as it was to him, because when I was with my husband, we did try for children. It just never happened. And now I'm at my mid-30s. I just thought maybe, children wasn't going to be for me. And so it happened. And then the first, I guess, red flag that I chose not to notice was that he tried to force me to have an abortion. And he was like, if you want to stay with me, then you have to get rid of the child. And I said, well, it's my body, it's my child.
Wow.
And I am not going to get rid of it. And he was like, yes, you are. I'm going to take you to the clinic now. And it was almost like a passive aggressive encounter, where he was telling me to have this abortion, trying to force me to have this abortion. And it wasn't aggressive or shouty or anything like that. And it was like, well, you need to do this because, this is not what I want. So I said, okay, if it's not what you want, that's fine. But I'm not going to have an abortion. And I don't believe in it, and I don't want it. And it's my body, and you don't ever have to be involved. I'll never ask you for a penny. I have my own home. I have, I've got a good career. I don't need anything. So if you want to go, you can go. And he did. He was really upset with me. He just couldn't believe that I didn't do what I was told. And he did go off. He went off for 2 months, and I never heard from him.
Oh, God.
And the way we left it wasn't like, okay, we're broken up, it's finished, and and then he got back in contact with me, and there was actually one other thing that happened before I found out I was pregnant, actually. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, but it will come up a bit later on in the story. But he went on holiday without telling me. But he just, in the end, he just went missing. He said, I've got to go. Something's happening at work, so I'm just going to take a break and I'm going to go. And so I said, okay, I took it. So that was another little red flag, but I kind of just believed what he said. And so anyway, so after I told him I was pregnant, I didn't hear from him for 2 months. And then he came back and he says, okay, I accept that we're going to have this child, and we can move in together, And I had a house. So I said, okay, we'll move into my house. And, so we've got home, he doesn't have to do anything, like everything is set up for him. And so then it was kind of okay again. It was that nice person came back. And then my mum came on holiday and she met him. And she never told me this, but only later on she told me. But when she was here on holiday, we took her out for dinner so she could meet him and all this kind of thing. And then when we were driving home, I put my hand to hold his hand and he pulled his hand away. And my mum thought that was really weird. She said, and she just said from there, she kind of got this cold feeling of him towards me. And so from that moment, and you know how mums can be, once they take a disliking or they have this intuition, it's really hard to change her, mum's mind after that. And literally, she just never liked him. From that point on, she never liked him. But anyway, everything seemed to be okay. And I was oblivious. I was full of hormones and so happy and having a baby and so happy that I was going to be a parent, that, all the little things, and there were probably more. And I used to just ignore it because, I had this baby come in and I was so excited and, we were moving in together. And it was once we moved in together, the cracks started to show. Now, this is nearly sort of 1 year in. And so we didn't live together until we'd been together, I guess, a year. So he moved in, we'd been together a year and I was just about to give birth. But he was still, living in his place. And it was once he moved in that certain things started to show, like the little bit of controlling behavior, kind of saying you can't do this and you can't do that, you can't see people. And then if I went somewhere and didn't tell him, then he wouldn't talk to me for a week. And all these that's a big trait of theirs, is to do the ignoring as a punishment. And his punishment was a lot of, that was one of his favorite ones, was the punishment, and then the withholding of love. So he would ignore me for a while, so not actually talk to me at all. He's living in my home, but again, I was opened it up and said, like, this is our home, I'm not going to make it like that. And then and then after him not talking to me for a week or two, then I'd get more punishment, and then he wouldn't hug me, he wouldn't kiss me, he would give me no affection. And of course, I'm so starved of emotion. I'm a new mum, and I'm craving his love and attention and approval and all these kind of things. And then I would try to change myself and do everything that I can to make him happy. And I tell you what, I would do the most minuscule of things that a normal person wouldn't even care about. They wouldn't even worry about that at all. But it's another way of them breaking you down and trying to control you, and I guess just getting you to conform to their way. And it just slowly got worse and worse. And then then the financial stuff started to come, and like withholding money, so after I had my first child, 3 months later I was pregnant again. So I couldn't go back to work. So I was pregnant, and then when my son was a year old, then I had my daughter. And then I had another year off work, and that's when we got together, I was working as a coach, but for a corporate company. And because I got pregnant one after the other, it was impossible to go back to work and to pay for 2 lots of daycare for the children. It just sort of made no sense. So now he's controlling me financially because he's the person bringing in the money in, and I'm not bringing any money in, and it's another form of control. So I've got this, the ignoring, the withholding of emotion, the financial control, telling me what I can and can't do here and there, all this kind of stuff. And it's all very passive aggressive and almost done with a smile on their face. So you kind of just think, is he really doing that? Or, am I like, is he actually just doing something and I don't know what's going on? And this was exactly what was going on. But I just was so caught up with pregnancy and children and all sorts that I just didn't see it coming, and it was getting worse and worse and worse. And then the biggest mistake I made was when my daughter was 2, my son was 3, was I sold my house to buy a property with him. And at this point, the abuse used to come. It wasn't all the time. You see, the thing is, this kind of abuse comes incrementally, and they do it so almost like you can't really notice what's happening to you. And of course, once we'd sold my house, now this was now my last bit of independence gone, because I wasn't working, and this was my last thing that belonged to me. So now the car belonged to him. And when we bought the house together, the other house, he was like, "You're not working. You're a stay-at-home mum. So only my name can go on the deeds, because you shouldn't be allowed." Oh. And I just kind of went with it, like stupidly. Like, I was so stupid, but I did one clever thing. I did really one clever thing, because I protected my money that I put into that property with a solicitor. I got a legal document drawn up, but not knowing that even with that protection, my money's protected. The fight to get that money back, which I'm still in, which we'll go into shortly, it's crazy. He knew exactly what he was doing by not letting me put my name on the property, and it was almost as if the plan was to steal that money. And it kind of, he kind of did some messy things, and that kind of came out. But yeah, so now we get into this place that his name is on the door. I've put the money in to buy it. He had no money at all. So he didn't put a penny in. And then now the abuse gets worse, so much worse. It's like he was going out all the time, not coming home, sometimes wouldn't come home for days on end. Now I was finding out about other women, and now he's not hiding it, because he doesn't care. He's got me in this position where I am so dependent on him. All my money is tied up in a property that my name is not on, even though my money is protected at what we call land registry here. There's really nothing I can do without a court battle to get this money back. So I'm stuck in this place. I'm miserable. I have 2 really small children, and he does whatever he wants and says, "Well, you met me. I was like this, and you better just take it. I'm not going to change. I can do what I want, and you can't," basically. So I mean, and in the process of this, my family obviously are seeing what's happening to me, and they are, he's pushing them away. He doesn't want them around, and he starts to alienate me from my family. And so I'm not seeing my sister. He drove a wedge between my sister and I, and stopped me from seeing my friends. And my mum used to have to come and see me in secret, like when he was at work. And then like Christmases and stuff like that, he would tell people to leave our home. It's like, "Get out of my house. This is my house. It's not her house. She can't tell you to stay." And it became like a nightmare. I just couldn't believe that I was living this life again, where I was in a nightmare. I was so miserable. I had 2 kids, and all my power, so I thought, is gone again. And I was like, how am I in this position? I'm turning 40 and my life is in ruins again, so I thought. And again, my savior, he even stopped me going to church. So by this point, I'm not going to church anymore. He just tore down every part of my life. He tore down like my belief system. He, did things to me to make me think I was crazy. He was putting me down all the time, making me feel worthless, isolating me from everyone that can, support me and encourage me into, doing the right thing. And that was really to leave him. And now the power has changed, because before it was my home, all my things. And now everything is in his name, the car, the everything. And he was like, well, if you leave, you get out, you're going to leave this house. And he put the kids and I on the street. When I said to him, I don't want to be with you anymore, he put the kids and I on the street. And I say that, on the street, we had to go and sleep on the floor in my mum's house on a mattress. And I had no money. He had stripped me of everything. And so now I'm back to, and this is 2 years ago now. So now
Basically
I'm back to,
left you guys homeless.
yeah, he made us homeless. And I went to court to try and get the house back. And the judge, who was a woman, and I couldn't believe this, said to me, and he said to the judge, so he said in a court of law, I'm selling that place and I'm going to give her money back. So she can't stay there. It's my name on everything. And the judge listened to him, and he says, I've done nothing to her. And, and the judge just believed everything he said. And, up until now, I haven't mentioned it, but I'm pretty positive, and I can't say this for sure because he's not diagnosed. But when I started reading up on the things that was happening to me, the word narcissist started to come up a lot. When I was looking at this, the person ignores you, the person makes you feel like you're crazy, the person is, controlling you financially and this and that. And then I was reading other things about what narcissists do. And it was like I had this checklist in front of me, and I was ticking every single box. Oh my gosh, this is what he does. Oh my gosh, this is what he does. Oh my gosh, this is what he does. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm pretty positive I'm living with someone who's got a narcissistic personality disorder. He's so cold. He has no empathy. He has, there's no feeling, there's no love, there's no nothing. And just right towards the end of our relationship, before I had to leave with the kids, my ex-husband, the one that I was married to, had committed suicide. And this was,
man.
Yeah, he killed himself nearly 2 years ago. And what I didn't know about him, and it explains a lot about our relationship, was that he had a mental health problem. So he had schizophrenia and bipolar. It was undiagnosed when we were together, but when his sister called me to tell me that he had passed away, she told me everything. Because when we used to speak before, I always used to say, look, our lives are separate together. We're not anymore. So when we talk, let's just talk. We have a relationship. We don't need to talk about him. So I never knew that he had a mental illness. And it's only after he passed that I found out that he had a mental illness. And I felt terrible. This is a person that I loved. And no matter what he did to me, I would never wish that on anybody's life at all. So it was heartbreaking to know that what he went through led him to his death, And so I've had this phone call. I'm sat on the bed. I'm crying. And he comes in and was like, what's wrong with you? And so I told him. And he says, well, what do you care? He deserves to die.
Oh my
You
goodness.
shouldn't care about him. And I was like, what kind of a monster are you? There's no person on the planet, no matter what they do, that deserves to die like that or in any other way. I mean, it's like me saying the same thing to you. Why? I mean, that's just, and that's when I really realized what a monster this person really is. He is devoid of any kind of emotion, any empathy, anything. And it really opened my eyes as to who he was. And that really gave me the strength to walk out with nothing. I mean, we walked out with a few bags of clothes, and then after that, he changed all the locks, and we couldn't, because I owned the house before, every piece of furniture that was in that new house we bought belonged to me. the kids' beds, the wardrobes, everything, all the furniture, every single thing belonged to me, and he wouldn't let me have it. So I had to go to court to get our furniture once we got a new place to live. And so we were without our furniture, without the kids' clothes for 5 months. This is a man that professes to care about his children, but wouldn't give them their beds, wouldn't give them their blankets, their pillows, their clothing, their toys, everything. So, everything of all of my belongings, all my jewelry, everything was there, and he wouldn't give it back to us. So it had to us going back to court to get all of that back. And it just, all of this, was just confirming like who he was. And and we've just recently finished. We were in court for a couple of years and to do with the children, and that's just finished. And now the last thing to do is to go to court is the property, so that I can get my money back. And so that's the battle. But yeah, that's this. I guess I don't know if I've covered everything, but the story of my two abusive relationships.
You know what? First and foremost, thank you for healing yourself by sharing your story.
Yeah.
And thank you for giving us minute details. I was in total trance because I never experienced suicide, but I do have two kids. They're back to back. They're literally 1 year and 1 day, no, less than a year apart. Sorry, they're like 1 year and 31 days apart. Sorry, 1 year, 1 day apart. There we go. I got it. And they're 16 and 17. I had kids at a very young age.
Yeah.
That's another story in itself on my podcast. I talked about it before. But what hit me the most is I like getting metaphors and visual ideas. So like a puppet has strings.
Yeah.
Okay. You are the puppet, and the person where a person's a person is the puppeteer.
Yeah.
And I was in a relationship on and off for years, and it was sort of I don't know if they're diagnosed, but they are narcissists. They will withhold love. They withhold sex. They withhold time. They'll use any excuse to not see me. Then I went and talked to them for a week. Then they called the phone. I'm like, oh my God, they're calling. I'm like, hello.
Yeah.
I mean, that what was happening. And I remember going through that. It was just, my emotions were like this constantly. Now, fortunately, we never had kids together because I dated somebody else.
Yeah.
We never got married. We were not tied financially. But oh my God, just the purse strings that pull at your heart because they know you how much you want them. In this case, she knew how much I wanted her.
Yeah.
And stupid me, I'm like this, right? I can't see, wait a minute, Ron, there's a lot of women out there. I want her. I want her. The idea not to have her was so compelling that I wanted her more. So the more she played this, the more I wanted her, until one day she had to go back to her country to take care of some business. And she says, look, Ron, you have issues, you have problems, and I can do better. Because what she did one time, I'll never forget this. At the time, I had a Hyundai car, okay, which is not the best of the car, but I had one car. She had a BMW. She always tell me, you're a hot guy, you should get a BMW, you should get a BMW, okay. So what happened, I always drive her car every time I went somewhere. And one day we're driving back to my apartment, because she had a house, not an apartment, and hang out. And she looks at me and says, you know what? I can't remember what caused this conversation happened, but she says to me, which I'll never forget, is, I can do better than you. There's guys that are millionaires that want me. What do you have to offer me? And driving that car, I felt, as I'm 5'9", but I felt small as an ant. And I said, oh my God, to look back, I would have said, okay, cool. These guys that want you, they're millionaires. She's like, yeah. Okay. Tell you what, let's just end this. You go and have them and be done with me.
Yeah.
But she knew then these are the things she could control me with.
Yeah.
And I just never forget. And now here comes the idea. I got to start giving her more. So I mean, I got to start spending my own expensive purses, spending my own expensive shoes. I got to start doing wine and dining to prove this person I'm worthy, because I never thought I was worthy. So I didn't know that until I did my own work that I wasn't worthy of anything. So wherever someone threw at me, I thought I was only worthy of that instead of pushing it back, saying, no, I'm not. So hearing your story about your narcissist or your, like I said, baby's daddy or whatever you want to kind of say it is, it's really compelling to my story, even though we weren't entwined financially and we had no kids together. So, but it's, whew, boy, now it all makes sense why she's so hot. And every guy she meets, she's only good for 6 months to a year relationship. Then she always says, "Oh, you're so hot? You have everything together." Oh, you know what? It's no, it's them. It's not me. No, it's you. I'm sorry, but it's now realize the reason why every guy sees this and says, "I'm out of here. I can't take
Yeah.
this anymore." Then she does this. Every now and then she'll send a text, or like what was it, 7 months ago? I get a text out the blue. Hey, you know what? Did I leave any paperwork at your house? I'm like, we haven't dated in like 5 years. I don't even live in that apartment. I don't live in the same state anymore. So you're thinking I'll keep some, but it was a lure to put it out there to say, okay, see if he responds.
Yeah,
See what
they
happens.
want to see if they can reel you back in. That is part of their game. They try to reel you back in, and then the cycle starts again. So the beginning part is that the love bombing, which is what they do to you to make you fall in love. They're this charming, gorgeous, seems so well put together person, and then something happens and then they take it all away, and then you become this like love sick puppy. I need that love, I need that attention, and it's almost like you have taken a drug and you're addicted to it, and they have you on that, they have that push and pull with you that keeps you addicted to and so craving their love and attention and approval. And that is why, and like you say, that up and down, it is an absolute roller coaster. And you don't know if you're coming, you're going, you feel crazy. You feel like, what have I done? And you've done nothing. You've done absolutely nothing that warrants that kind of behavior. But to them, it's a game. You're a piece of meat. And you know what? I heard him, my ex, the narcissist, the supposed narcissist, describe a woman like that. She's just a piece of meat, and I'll have a taste whenever I feel like it. I was like, that's a person you're talking about.
Oh,
That's a person. That's somebody's daughter. This is, and I mean, you can't even imagine the stuff that he said about me. Like, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. The stuff that he said, and even the judge said to him, I can't believe that you're saying these things. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. I mean, it was really some bad stuff. And of course, they didn't believe him because they could see what a liar he was. And the unfortunate thing is that I just didn't see through him at the beginning. And by the time he had reeled me in so much, it was too late. I was already addicted, and I just couldn't get enough. And I was always trying to get his approval. I was always trying to please him. But the thing is that what I came to realize, and I'm sure you have too, is that they date a specific kind of a person. So that millionaire that girl was talking about wouldn't be the right person for her because she couldn't control him and she couldn't do all this nonsense because they would say, get away. Like, what do you think you're doing? And they need the people like us who are people pleasers, who are empaths, who are, who can be molded, who will end up being submissive, can be controlled easily. Because all we do is we try to make everyone around us happy, and like we always put ourselves in their shoes, and like some other people, they just don't have that. They just wouldn't take that, and they see you coming like a big red bus. They know exactly who you are, and they pick their victims most of the time exactly in that way.
They check that list off.
Yeah.
They're checking the list off. They're looking for us.
They could feel it. Yeah.
I have one question. You went through a lot of stuff.
I did. Yeah.
Okay. And this question is not attacking you and your story. I'm just an extremely curious person. And I shouldn't be saying that because I shouldn't use it as a lure, but I am curious. You said something in the very beginning, which I don't know how it played in your life, but you said about the confidence and self-worthy. How much did that play a factor in your relationship with these two different individuals?
Yeah, I think obviously they're attracted to that kind of thing, and like I said, what you know what with my husband, the first guy, he when I look back at it now, after I told you he committed suicide, he had mental health problems. When I look at it, like when it started really going downhill, was obviously it was the beginning. It was the onset of his mental illness coming to him, and it was obviously a really gradual process. So I understand, those outbursts, and there was paranoia, and I mean, there was all sorts of things. It was all erratic. It was, when I look back on it now, I understand it. So with him, it's different. He wasn't in his right mind, and abuse is abuse, and it's there's no excuse for it. But some people, like if you read up and I'm listening to this book called The Body Keeps Score, and it tells you about all the different mental illnesses and, sort of how it affects you and how it manifests itself. And people with those kind of mental illnesses, they have those violent outbursts. They can't control themselves and stuff like this. But whereas with a narcissist, because it's a personality disorder, and most of the time they really, we just switched that off. Most of the time,
That's okay.
they know exactly what they're doing. And with a narcissist, it's a game. They see that you have that, you might have this outer shell that portrays this kind of person. And yeah, I was confident and I was bubbly and I was outgoing, but I was also, and I guess from the way that, you speak to a person, you get to know them, you all kind of get to see that this person is quite a soft and gentle soul, even though they might outwardly look. You can still be confident and still be a gentle soul. Do you know what I mean? And you could be confident, but you could be hard as nails as well. Like there's the two different ways. And he could see that in me. He could see that I was that kind of a person. And this is a game to them. This is not about they love you, they don't love you. It's a game that they play. And the game is that I'm going to hurt you for my pleasure. And I'm going to continue doing it as long as you let me do it. And I will do everything and anything in my power to break you down, and they love it. They get off on it. So as much as they're a drug to you, that is also their drug. Their drug, their high is you getting broken. And it's just a game. And they have no feeling. They have no empathy. He couldn't care less what he did to me. He couldn't care less that the kids and I had no beds, no bedding, no nothing, and we were sleeping on a floor. He didn't care. He didn't even offer to give us our blankets. My mum had to buy us blankets. I had no money. He had taken everything, and he didn't care.
And those are his kids.
I know. And you know what? The worst thing is,
Wow.
he went on to try and get full custody of the kids. But again, it was just that game. I'm going to hurt her. I'm going to destroy her. I'm going to take the kids away from her. He was telling everybody, even the judge, that everyone, I'm going to have those kids back. And he didn't say he was going to hurt me to the judge, but that's exactly what he was doing. That is all it's about, because he's never cared about the kids. So it's just
He enjoys
unfortunate,
it.
but that's
He
what it
enjoys
is
the
to them.
control.
Yeah. It's a form of control, yeah. I've got the things and you can't have it, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. He's totally enjoying it. And I like how right now we're seeing two different perspectives here. So like with Tiffany going through it with a male narcissistic, and then Ron with a female.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for the audience or for our listeners, it's actually could be anybody. You can't just say it's just a female.
No,
it could also be a male.
And do you know what?
So,
it can be,
Gloria,
I think you came into one of my Clubhouse rooms as well the other day, and we have had people come on the panel who it's been their parent has been the narcissist. And there's been other people who come on to speak and ask questions. And it's been a co-worker and a boss that's been the narcissist. So the relationship is not always an intimate one. It could be, that parental, or it could be, one other lady came on the other day and it was her sister and her brother that was the narcissist.
Wow.
So they are everywhere. It is not gender specific. It is not intimate specific. That it can be anyone, and that it's just all around you in whatever, whether it's your personal life or your work life or, your close friends, whatever. And it's, and I think this is one of the reasons why I do what I do, is because the information is out there, but it's not widely talked about, and not enough people talk about this or realize, or even have a clue. I didn't have a clue. I'll be honest with you. I did not know what a narcissist was. In my mind, I thought a narcissist was someone who was vain and just, thought, oh, look, I love myself. And it's just so much deeper than that. It's only until you get in that space and then you start to Google what is happening to me. And then you get all this, and they do this and they do that and they do this and they do that. And you're just like, oh my goodness, how, how in the hell did I not know this? How, and the information piece and the education piece is so lacking in the legal system. I think these kind of things should be taught in school, so that they could help people to try and avoid this, because it destroys lives. Do you know that you can, and I swear, I think this happened to me, but I had to get therapy, was that I think for a time I had PTSD when I came out of that relationship with the narcissist, the second relationship, the father of my children, because it was so traumatic. And so, if you think about, imagine having all those things happening to you, you're abused for 7 years, then you've lost your home, you've lost all your money, you've lost everything, can you imagine the amount of stress that I was under trying to keep myself up for my children and, be that support and encourager? But yet I was so broken on the inside. I was dying inside, and it was so stressful.
Yeah.
And I was having anxiety, panic attacks, all sorts. I mean, it was like in the first year coming out of that relationship, it was a bit of hell. And I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of my own shadow. I was afraid of speaking up. I was afraid of telling people what really happened to me. I was afraid of, what I wanted to do in life. I felt like giving up on everything. And really, this was worse. This second time round was a hell of a lot worse for me than the first time.
He really had you tied down, totally tied down. And he knew that you would feed into whatever he does to you, whatever he tells you, because from the beginning, you felt like he was the one. He was your knight in shining armor. He swept you off your feet. So he knew from then that what he was getting into, I have her. I have her all tied down. And so after all that, now when you see him and if you get a text from him, how do you feel? How is this like if you see him face to face when he has the kids for visitations or when you pick up the kids?
It's still really hard, I'll be honest with you. And there's still some anger. It's not as bad, obviously, as it was in the beginning, because I'm getting to a place of healing. And, I do a lot of mindfulness work and, just really working on myself. I've never been as fit as I've in my whole life as I am now. I'm looking after myself so well. And I think that's what I needed to focus on and not him. The good thing is, and the way that I've worked it out with the courts, is that pretty much I don't see him and there's no contact. So the pick up and drop off is all done at school. But in some cases, with the holidays, it's inevitable. But I can go for 2 months of not seeing him while the kids are at school. So, that it's amazing. And I'm so glad that the courts agreed to do it in that way. So I don't have to see him. I don't have to speak to him. I told them I don't ever want to speak to him. And I had to, because when I had him on emails and all the different ways for him to contact me, even social media, the abuse carried on because he couldn't do it face to face. It was now coming in other ways. So I had to block him on social media. I had to block him on the telephone. I had to set up the kids with their own devices so that they could communicate with their dad. And I made sure that the pickup and drop off was done at school. But you know what? It is hard. So when he calls to speak to the kids, I walk out of the room because it is still hard to hear his voice because it makes me angry. And I don't want to feel like that. But 2 years is really such a short amount of time. And I know that it'll get to the point where it won't bother me and, I just won't care anymore because it's already minimized. So I know I'm on the right path. But I can't be around him because him being around me or hearing his voice is a trigger for me. And one of the things that you have to do as a part of your healing journey is to minimize those triggers because it doesn't have a good effect on you. And especially because I was suffering from anxiety and panic attacks, I don't know what that effect has had, inside my body, let alone on my mind. So I have to protect myself as well as the kids because it's not good for the kids to see that as well. So I have to think about them. So I've minimized the contact to virtually nothing now. And that's the best way for me and for the kids as well, because the level of conflict was just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Listen to your story about what you had to go through. If I listen to you on the mic, I hear a place, okay, I'm in a better place now. What work did you have to do? I mean, was it overnight? Was it years? What did you do to get to the place you are now?
Do you know what? I think the work that I did in those 7 years after my ex-husband really set me up because the bounce back this time round was so quick. And I think I liken it to working and building up muscle. So I'd already done the work. And do you know what? I have to say that I surprised myself that how quickly I bounced back. And I think I came to the realization that my ex-husband was the person that I really loved. And I did not feel the same way about the father of my children. And to this day, I've not cried. I've never cried about that relationship. I've not cried about anything. I mean, the only thing that makes I get angry is that the fact that he's living in a house that I paid for. That's the thing, it's like, why don't you just be done with it? Sell the place and give me the money, give me my money back and let's just cut everything off. But, that's not the way they play. They don't play fair. It's dirty. And that's what kind of pees me off.
Yeah.
But I'm not sad. I'm really happy. In fact, I'm so happy. I'm like, this is amazing. I love it. I love, where I am now. I mean, I live in a beautiful area. And I just feel happy, and I wouldn't have got here if I didn't go through what I went through. And he thinks he's broken me, but he hasn't. He's made me stronger. He's made me really step into my purpose. I'm doing the work I truly 100% believe that I'm meant to be doing. I wouldn't be doing this work if I hadn't have gone through what I went through. So, the way I look on it is that everything that happens to you is a blessing, even though it might not be at that time. But this was just what he did to me was, just aided in what, my blessing. It was just a blessing in disguise. And I was speaking to someone the other day and she tried to, she wanted me to sum it up. And I used a Bible quote, and there's this, I don't know which book it's from or what verse or anything, but it's the one where God says, I'm going to give you beauty for your ashes. And that's, I was in ashes when this was going on, but I really feel like that. I had my time, I went through it and I was in ashes 2 times. But now I feel like I'm getting the beauty from it. That's how I feel.
Yeah. This is why you're calling this
comeback.
Yeah, your second rebirth.
Yeah, this is my second rebirth. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, you sound more you sound really happy when you were talking about just getting out of there. Like it just showed, you know, your actions, your body language, and the way you were speaking about it. So I'm glad that you were able to get out of that and be able to just get back up, you know. And I think it's not only just for yourself but for your kids, and you know, your bravery and courage is just staying strong. I think that for the most part, your kids are your motivation on all this as well, because they're still so young, but they do see you, they will see you growing up, that you are a strong woman, you're a strong mother. And I'm curious, with, you know, after this experiences that you've had, do you feel that you have your guard up right now?
When it comes to romantically, you mean like meeting other
Yeah.
people or just in general?
Um, well, first, of course, you know, I felt like there's going to be that trust issue as well. So let's do romantically for now, and then yeah, let's talk
Okay.
about both romantically and meeting people.
Okay, yeah, I'll start with romantically first. So actually, I did start trying to date about a year ago, because I kind of felt ready,
Hmm.
and then I realized I wasn't ready. So I went on a few dates, and you know what, COVID hasn't helped anything because you can't really meet anyone. So here at the moment, you can go for a
Yeah.
walk, but it's winter here. It's quite cold, and so it's just really not. It's not the best conditions to kind of meet someone to go for a walk in the freezing cold or being rained on. But yeah, I still feel I do have my guard up, and I feel it's probably going to take a hell of a lot of time and honesty on the other person's part. Like they're going to have to. I'm going to have a lot of questions to ask. Like I'm going to want to know everything. And for some people, that might seem intense because they're not going to know what I've been through. But I'm going to want to know, like, how's your family life? Like, do you love your mom? Like, do you know what like everything? I just want to know everything because I want to see if there's any.
You have to start coaching.
Yeah. I have to become that. But the thing is that with both relationships, both of them had come from like a hard upbringing. My ex-husband, his family split up when he was really young, and his dad wasn't around. I don't know that I can say that's a contributing factor to his mental illness, but he came from a broken home, and that affected him. He had abandonment issues and things like that, especially with his dad. And then the same thing with the second one, the father of my children. But he not only did he have the same sort of thing, like dad not around, and but the household seemed chaotic that he lived in. His siblings were not all had different fathers, and it was just not like an upbringing. I mean, although I wasn't with my father, but my stepfather was in my life from a very young age and still is till this day. And so it was very stable for the longest time. So I grew up in a different home life, and also it was there was abuse going on in there. And a lot of the times, like medical professionals say, and I don't know what the statistics are, but people who are abused, more times out of 10 will go on to become an abuser, and abuse other people. And it's not necessarily
Mm.
sexually or anything, it can be different types of abuse. And I think that's why when I say that I'm going to want to know your whole history is because I feel like there's a pattern there. And so I'm just going to want to know, like, how stable is your family? And you know what? It sounds a
Yeah.
bit much, like a lot, but I think it's going to take me a lot to get involved with someone romantically. But in terms of other people, like in the workspace and meeting other people, I'm generally very trusting, but I think it's more the matters of the heart that I will guard. And especially because I've got children as well. What I've been through, and because I've
Yeah.
got children, I've got them to protect as well. So, but yeah, as soon as lockdown is
Wow.
over,
One of our guests.
I was
You go first. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when lockdown is over, I'm going to try and date. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, why not?
I was going to add into that is we had one of our guests on our podcast, and she says, "Look, I have some relationship issues. When I meet a guy, first thing I ask, have you ever had a coach? Are you currently seeing a coach? Or have you seen a therapist? If you're not doing one of those, have a nice day. I'm out of here."
I love that. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna borrow that one.
So that way you don't have to get a laundry list.
Yeah.
Do you have you seen a coach? No. Do you seen a coach right now currently? No. Have you seen a therapist? No. Hey, you know what? It's not going to work out, dude.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm a coach. I have a coach, and I will continue to have a coach because I have different things I had to work on myself.
Yeah.
And by me doing the work with a coach, doing work myself, it makes me a better person to meet better people out there in relationships or just in a workspace or just out there in community because you've done the work. But those that never done the work, no one can say they've had 100% perfect life. Nobody can say that because it's not 100% perfect human being in the world right now.
No.
With that being said, I do the work.
Yeah, you have to be working on yourself.
Even if we've done the work, or even if you've worked on yourself, you can't still say we're perfect, right? It's just nobody's perfect. No human being is perfect. And,
no, I am not perfect.
Tiffany wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I'm not perfect at all.
No,
I have
is.
flaws. I probably have hundreds of flaws as well. But yeah, you know what? I think it's about the honesty piece. It's about, like the willingness to change and like knowing that because a lot of people will just come to you and say, I don't need to do anything. You do. You need to be the one. And that's not going to work.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to work. You need to both have this knowing about yourself, about where you fall short of, and your shortcomings, and try, have the willingness to work on it, and, get support from people around you, like get a therapist, see a coach, like you said. And like you guys, like I've been a coach since 2012. I have had so many coaches, and working with coaches all the time. And you cannot be the best coach if you are not being coached. You're not coachable, you're not teachable, you're not willing to learn, you're not willing to work on yourself. And those people need to have those traits as well,
Yeah. Yeah. And
110% agree.
Yeah, it's true. And what sucks about it sometimes too is when you're meeting new people, sometimes their true colors doesn't come out till till later. Fortunately, some you'll see it from the very first time you meet them. You can kind of sense that already. But like in your case and Ron's, the people that you guys were with at that point, was it just, you guys were drawn into something about them. And maybe at that time you guys were looking for something, looking for love. So
yeah,
it's anything that they can do to you, they will take that. And it's like taking a bait, right? And so his and hers true colors was already coming out. You guys just were blinded by something about it. And I do have a friend who's like that. And I think, Tiffany, I've shared this with you. And unfortunately, she's still in this relationship. But I have talked to a coach about that. And, it'll come. She will come later on. It just takes time for some people to really realize it and understand what situation they're in. But I have experienced that. Like sometimes you don't know the person's true color until later, and it could be years till later, that you are already drawn into this and you're already addicted to this person.
Yeah. The thing is, so I've met a lady on Clubhouse, and she was almost 20 years, marriage, kids and everything. And she shares this openly. So I'm not, she has a book, and she talks about what she went through. And I mean, like, I was only 7 years. She did 20, like almost 20 years. And I
That's a
just
long time.
I commend her. I don't even know what to say, but I commend her in so many ways, because I don't know, like, if I would have survived 20 years. I mean, and what she went through, I'm not even all the way through the book. What she went through, obviously, when I'm reading this book, it's so much of what was happening to me. It's, like, there's so many parts in the book that I feel like it's my story. And I just, I don't know how she got through it, but you know what? They have this knack of holding on to you with such a grip. And another thing that they do is they have, on the other way of them controlling you is devaluing you so much that you start to believe it. Anything that you do on repeat, you either it becomes a habit, but also you believe it in your mind. If it's repeated enough times, like even to a child, if you think about it, if you say something to them, whether it be positive or negative, every single day for a whole year of their life, that is going to, in their mind, that is their reality. And this is exactly what they do to you in this relationship. So not are they charming and really attractive, and they have this knack of reeling you in and then holding you there, but they keep you there by making you feel worthless. Like, who are you? Like, who are you going to find when you've got 2 kids now? You think you can walk out that door and you can get anyone? Who's going to want you? Like, look at you. You're like, you're past your sell by date. You there's nothing anyone wants from you. You're worthless. What do you have? You've got nothing now. You don't even own a
Yeah,
car or anything.
and you
And like,
feel it.
this is,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, you actually feel that way.
And I did until I snapped out of it. But
It
like I said, had I not done that work beforehand and had that 7 years of building myself up, I could have been in a way different position. I was just a bit stronger than he probably gave me credit for. And then I had my mum beside me, in front of me, behind me. My mum is she's like a wrecking ball. Like, she will come and mess things up for you. Like, she's crazy. And she was my strength. And she just takes no prisoners. And like, yeah, when I grow up, I want to be my mum. Like, she's she's the one that got me through this. She's the one that gave me more strength. She's the one that both times that made me realize who I am, reminded me of my worth and of my value. And she's the one that, lended her strength to me to walk out of the door, metaphorically, both times. So I think that's the important part. And I think we need to touch on that, is that if you are in this situation, you're going to need a support network. You are going to need people to lean on, because it's when you come out of there, you are a broken person and you are not believing in yourself. Your confidence, your self-esteem, everything is gone. And you're going to need those supportive people who are going to encourage you, who are going to remind you who you are. And so it's so important to have that strong support network around you, whether it be friends, family, whoever, and if it's really bad, like I had to like get therapy, get counseling, get a coach. Like I didn't get a coach like for a long period of time specifically on this subject, but I did speak to a coach about my problems and like how I could get over them, because obviously this is when I had to take some time off when all of this was happening, because mentally I was not in the right place to be able to give people the help that they needed. I needed to get stronger again, mentally, physically, spiritually, to start coaching again. And I never, like with me, like I have to work in integrity. I have to stand up for my values. And if I can't give it my all and give it my best, then I feel it's best not to do it. And so I spoke to someone who really helped me to kind of work these things out and get myself back on track. So I think it's important that you have that as well when you're, coming out of this journey, or even trying to come out of this journey to build your life back up again.
Absolutely. I gotta, since you went through a lot of trauma here, and it's good you got the help. For someone that's like, what the hell did I do? They're looking to find an avenue. They may not have the resources. Resources may not. They may not have a car. They may not have a computer. Hopefully, listen to us. They do have a computer, but they may not have resources or money at their disposal. What is like a simple 5 to 10 steps someone that's listening to us going what you're going through that can get help?
Well, like I said, I think I've touched on the first one. The is to have that support network, really. And I mean, friends and family are free. If you don't have monetary resources, you can do it that way. I know that here in the UK, I don't know for the rest of the world, but I think it's definitely something. If you're really struggling mentally, is to go and see your doctor, like see your GP, and they could probably refer you on to some services to see someone. You know what? It's so hard to say this because all over the world, like the way that works is a bit differently. Because sometimes here, therapy you have to pay for it, but in other cases, especially where there's domestic abuse involved, like they can refer you to someone to speak to. There's also I know there's domestic abuse charities all over the world which you could contact and have somebody that you could speak to. But the thing really is, and I know it's so hard because there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of shame about what happened to you, that you don't find the courage to be able to talk about it. But one of the best things to do, and which is why in a lot of these cases to do with, even PTSD and stuff like that, I know there are other ways to treat it, but talking therapies are, one of the main ways that they treat it. So being able to talk to someone that you really trust and who's going to encourage you in your journey, who's going to support you, and, just be a good listener, someone where you can just pour your heart out and they're not going to judge you. They're going to be for you. They're just there for you, and just love on you and just help you, in the best possible way that they can.